the pressure who no book. If you not have no education, people treat you like a book.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to another tutorial in this COVID-19 pandemic season. Parents, as teachers, we're very proud of you for the work that you're doing at home. Thank you very much. Students, continue to support your parents. Thank you. Today, we're going to be looking at subtracting mixed numbers. So we're going to be looking at subtracting mixed numbers. I'm going to be using two approaches to subtracting mixed numbers. I'm going to be using what I'm going to be calling the common sense approach. And then I'm going to be doing what is the written approach, the approach that is usually done in schools. But I want you to give a clearer understanding of what is really happening when you're subtracting, or what you can do to understand more clearly what is happening when you're subtracting. So again, I'm going to be looking at two approaches. One approach is to more create a picture of what's going on, and the other approach is the written approach. At the end, you can choose whichever method you want. More traditionally, schools use the written approach, but my aim is not only for you to see the written approach, but for you to understand what's going on. So come, let's go. First, I'm going to do the common sense approach, or a picture approach, telling you what's really happening. So now again, let's use a story. Here we have 8 and a piece of cake, and we have 3, and we want to take away 3 and a piece of cake. So here you've been to your grandma's house. She has baked cakes, and she has 8 and a piece of cake left. Now you want to take 3 and a piece of cake. Now let's get to the fraction. So your grandma has 8 and 5 6 cakes. That means she has 8 full cakes, and she has another cake that she had cut up into 6 parts, and she has 5 parts left. Here you want 3 full cakes, and you want 2 out of 7. So you want a cake that is cut up into 7 parts, or one of these cakes going to cut up into 7 parts, and you want 2 parts out of the 7 parts. So how would you look at that? If you're at home and your grandma say, take 3 2/7 of the cake, or 3 and a piece of the cake, what would you do first? I'm sure you'd have gone to the old ones, which is 8, and you're going to take away 3. 8 take away 3 is 5. So you would have had 5 old cakes there left. Now what you would have to find out next is if this piece is big enough for you to take this piece off. So now you want to take this from this. But what you have to find out, is this big enough? So this piece, is it bigger than this, or do you have to go and cut one of these cakes to get some more? So we're going to see that first. So now we have 5 out of 6, and we're going to take away 2 out of 7. Remember what is the rule for adding and subtracting fractions? The denominators must be the same. So here we want our LCM. We're going to be using our 7 times table, and we're going to be searching our 7 times table for the first number that we can find that is in the 6 times table, and it's also in the 7 times table. That number is 42. So 42. Now what do I do from 6 to get to 42? I times it by 7. So because I times the bottom by 7, I have to times the top by 7. We're doing equivalent fractions here. So 6 times 7 is 42, 5 times 7 is 35. So 5 out of 6 is the same thing as 35 out of 42. Let's come over this side. What do I do to 7 to get to 42? I times it by 6. Now I'm going to do equivalent fractions. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 7 times 6 is 42, 2 times 6 is 12. So here I have 35 out of 42, take away 12 out of 42. So here, when we change this 5 out of 6, it becomes 35 out of 42. 2 out of 7 becomes 12 out of 42. That means this piece was big enough for you to cut off that piece of it. Now let's cut it off and see what's left. 35, take away 12, is going to be left with 23. So 23 out of 42 is a fraction that's going to be left after I take this away from this. Now, how much cake would Grandma have left? Remember that Grandma has 5 whole cakes there. So here, our Grandma would have left 5 whole cakes. She would have left 5 whole cakes plus the 23 out of 42. So Grandma would have 5 whole cakes plus the 23 out of 42. Now, let us look at subtracting mixed numbers using the written method. In the method before, we used the common sense approach. Now we're going to be using the written method, the method that is more commonly used in school. To do this method, you need to know how to change mixed numbers to improper fraction. So remember, a mixed number is made up of a whole number and a fraction, a whole number and a fraction, while an improper fraction is a fraction in which the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So let's look back at the whole picture of a mixed number. A mixed number is one in which you have whole ones. So imagine I have 8 whole cakes that I did not cut up, but I have another cake that I had cut up, but I only have 5. I cut it up into 6 parts and I only have 5 parts left. So this is 8 and a piece of cake. I had 8 full cakes, and I have another one that I had cut up into 6 parts, but I have 5 parts left. I've given away 1 part, so I have 8 and 5, 6. This means I want to take out 3 cakes and a piece of cake. Now let's look at what's going to happen when we change it to an improper fraction. This means I'm going to cut up all of the cake. So if 1 cake is cut up into 6 parts, and I have 8 full cakes there, so 8 times 6 is 48. That means I'm going to have 48 pieces out of these 8 cakes. But I also have 5 more pieces here. So 48 plus 5 is 53. So that becomes 53 out of 6. This means I'm going to cut up each cake into 7. So if each piece is cut up into 7, there are 3 full cakes. 7 times 3 is 21 pieces, plus 2 more pieces, 23 out of 7. So the easy way to change from mixed number to improper fraction, 6 times 8 is 48, add 5 is 53, and you put it back over your 6. 7 times 3 is 21, add 2 gives 23. Now what we're going to do, we're going to now subtract this, so we don't have any mixed numbers, no, any whole numbers dealing with. So here, to subtract fractions, they must have the same denominator, so we need to find our LCM. Our LCM is the first number that we see in the 7 times table and the 6 times table, and that is 42. What do I do from 6 to get to 42? Times it by 7. So if I times the bottom by 7, I have to times the top by 7 to perform equivalent fractions. So I want to find a fraction, 5 out of 6. What is it out of 42? Now we need to multiply this. So to do this method, you also need to know how to multiply, and you also need to know how to divide. 7 times 5 is 35, but 7 times 50 is 350. 7 times 3 is 21. So if I add those together, I'm going to get 371. So here I have 371. So that's 371. 7 into 42 is 6, times that by 6, so I have to times that by 6. 6 times 23. 6 times 2 is 12, so 6 times 20 is 120. 6 times 3 is 18, so I have 138. Now I'm going to say 371 take away 138. So 371 take away 138. And here we have 8 from 11 leaves 3, 3 from 6 leaves 3, we have 233. So this, when I subtract that, that is going to give us 233 out of 42. Now that's the pieces. So now we need to change that back to a mixed number. How many 42s can I get out of 233? Now let's look at the 42 times table first. Let's write it down right here. 42 times 1 is 42. 42 times 2 is 84, so I can get more than that. 42 times 3 is 126, so I can get more than that, out more than 3 times. 42 times 4 is 168. I'm going to see if I can get any more of it. 42 times 5 is 210. And if I do 42 times 6, I'm going to be going over 233. So I know it can go into it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So that is going to be equal to 5 times. But if I take away 210 from 233, so 233 take away 210, I'm going to be left with 23. So that is going to give us 5 and 23 out of 42. 5 and 23 out of 42. And that's what we had for the one before. So again, using this method, first thing you do, change mixed number to improper fraction, change mixed number to improper fraction, find the lowest common multiple, change the 5 out, the improper fraction to an equivalent fraction, change them to an equivalent fraction, subtract as normal, but when you reach this stage, you're going to, if it's an improper fraction, you change it back to a mixed number. Let's look at one more question. Again, I'm going to be using a common sense approach to give you a picture of exactly what is really happening. And then I'm going to do the same question using the traditional or the more commonly used method that we use in school. So here I'm going to give you a story again. Here you have been to your grandma's house. She had 7 and a piece of cake in the kitchen, but you want to take 5 and a piece of cake home with you. So you've been to visit your grandma. She has 7 and a piece of cake, and you want to take 5 and a piece of cake. Now let's talk about the fractions. She has 7 and 1/5, and you want to take 5 and 5/6. How would you go about doing that? Yes, of course, I think you're going to say, take away the whole ones first. So you have 7, take away 5, which is going to be equal to 2. So 2 whole cakes are going to be there. Now you need to take 5/6 from 1/5. What you've got to decide, is this piece big enough for me to take this from it, or do I have to go and cut this cake afterwards, cut one of these cakes afterwards? So now we have taken out the old ones. We now need 5/6 out of this. So we need to find, is this piece big enough for me to take from this, or is it not big enough, so I've got to go and cut one of this cake? Let's find that out. So now we have 1 out of 5, take away 5 out of 6. We have to find our same denominator by using our LCM. What number do we see in the 6 times table, and we also see it in the 5 times table? The first number, and that's 30. What do I do from 5 to get to 30? Times it by 6, so I times that by 6. 6 times 1 is 6. What do I do to 6 to get to 30? Times it by 5, so I times that by 5. 5 5s, 25. So 1 out of 5 is the same thing as 6 out of 30. 5 out of 6 is the same thing as 25 out of 30. Now we have a problem. We have a problem in that we needed 25 out of 30, but we only have 6 out of 30. So we're going to need to take more cakes off. So 6 take away 25 is going to be minus 19. So that means I need 19 more pieces, because that's minus 19 of the 30. So I need 19 out of 30 more. I need 19 more pieces. So I need to cut up a cake into 30 parts and take out 19. So I did not have enough. So these 2 cakes that I have over here, I'm going to cut up 1. So I'm going to have 1 whole cake left. And I need 19 out of 30. So the next cake, I'm going to cut it up into 30 out of 30. So here I still have 2 cakes. It's just that 1 is a whole and 1 is cut up into 30 pieces. Now I can take out my 19 out of 30. And if I take out my 19 out of 30 there, I'm now going to be left with 31 whole, which is that, and that is going to be 11 out of 30. So we have 1 and 11 out of 30. So looking back at this approach again, I want you to understand what's happening. Not only just understanding the method of what you're doing, but try to have an approach in your head as to what is happening. Your grandma has 7 and a piece of cake. You want 5 and a piece of cake. The more common sense approach would be take the whole ones and take out 5 from 7. That's going to be left. So you have 2 whole cakes left there. Now you need to find out if this piece that you have there, you want this piece, but you want to find out if the piece that grandma has here is big enough for you to take that. You make them have the same denominator. So when you make them have the same denominator, then you do equivalent fractions. So in this case, 1 out of 6 is 6 out of 30. 5 out of 6 is 25 out of 30. This piece is bigger than this. So of the pieces that are left, you do not have enough. So that means that 2 cake that grandma have there, you got to go and cut up 1. So now you need 19 out of 30 pieces. So remember, you need 19 more. That's why that's minus 19. 19 more pieces out of 30. So it means then, of these 2 cakes, you're going to keep 1 whole cake and you're going to cut up the other one into 30 pieces. So you really still have 2 cakes, 1 and 30 out of 30. So now you can take out the piece that you want, which is 19 out of 30. So grandma will have left 1 and 11 out of 30. Now we're going to be looking at the next approach. Now we're going to be looking at the more frequently used method, or what I am going to be calling the written method. The first thing we're going to do is to change our mixed numbers to improper fractions. 5 times 7 is 35, add 1 is 36. So we have 36 out of 5. 6 times 5 is 30, add 5 is 35. So we have 35 out of 6. We've got to make the denominators the same, so we have changed it from mixed number to improper fraction. To change from mixed number to improper fraction, we multiply the denominator by the whole number and add the numerator. So 5 times 7 is 35, add 1 is 36. 6 times 5 is 30, add 5 is 35. Now we need our lowest common multiple. So we search the 6 times table and the 5 times table. Look for the first number that I can see that is in both of them, and that's going to give us 30. 5 into 36, so I times that by 6, I have to times this by 6. 6 times 3 is 18, so 6 times 30 is 180. 6 times 6 is 36. So here I have 216. 6 into 30 is 5, so I times that by 5, I have to times that by 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 3 is 15, and the 2 makes 17. So I have, or 5, I can say, so, or to use that other method, I can say 5 times 3 is 15, so 5 times 30 is 150, and 5 times 5 is 25, to make it easier to multiply that way. 5, 7, I get 175. Now I have 216 take away 175. So I have 216 and I'm going to take away 175. So 5 from 6 leave 1. 7 from 11 leave 4. So what I have here is 41. So my answer is 41 out of 30. So I have here 41 out of 30. Now, remember that this is in an improper fraction. So I can now change it back to a mixed number. So 41 out of 30 is equal to, how many 30s can I get out of 41? 1. And how many is going to be left? 11. So 1 and 11 out of 30. So my answer there is 1 and 11 out of 30. Today we looked at subtracting mixed numbers. We looked at 2 different approaches. One in which I'm going to call the common sense approach, and the other one is the written approach, the approach that you would more frequently or more commonly seen used in schools. I wanted you to get an understanding or a picture in your mind as to what is really taking place. So that's what we did in the first approach. Let's go back over the approach. Here we have 7 and 1/5, take away 5 and 5/6. First thing we did was to take away the whole numbers. 7 take away 5, which is 2. So we have 2 wholes right there. Imagine it was cake, 2 whole cakes. Now I have 1/5 and I need to take away 5/6. The problem I might find is that 1/5 is not big enough for me to take 5/6. If I find out that that is what is happening in the end, it means I have to cut up this cake, one of this cake, to get another piece of it. So 7 take away 5 is 2. Now I need to take away 5/6 from 1/5. To take away fractions, they must have the same denominator. So we're making them into equivalent fractions. We find the LCM. The LCM is 30. What do I do from 5 to get to 30? Times it by 6. So because I times the bottom by 6, I have to times the top by 6. That becomes 6 out of 30. What do I do to 6 to get to 30? Times it by 5. So because I times the bottom by 5, I have to times the top by 5 to get 25 out of 30. In this case, this 1 out of 5, which is 6 out of 30, is not big enough for me to take 5 out of 6, which is 25 out of 30. So I have only 6 out of 30. I need 19 more pieces. That's why I have there minus 19. That means I need 19 out of 30. So what we're going to do, we're going to come back to where we have the 2 cakes. We're going to cut up one of the cake. So 1 cake is left whole, and because I need 19 out of 30, I'm going to cut up the other cake into 30 out of 30. So here I have 2 cakes. Now I can take out my 19 out of 30. 19 from 30 is going to be 11. So grandma will have left 1 whole cake and 11 out of 30. Then we look at the more written approach. The more written approach is where we change the mixed number into an improper fraction. 7 times 5 is 35, add 1 is 36 out of 5. 6 times 5 is 30, add 5 is 35 out of 6. Now we've changed them from a mixed number to an improper fraction. We're using the same approach where we've got to have a same denominator when we're subtracting. So our denominator is 30. So here we come over here, our denominator is 30. What do I do from 5 to get to 30? Times it by 6. So if I times the bottom by 6, I have to times the top by 6. That would give me 216. What do I do from 6 to get to 30? Times it by 5. So if I times the bottom by 5, I have to times the top by 5. That will give me 175. So 216 take away 175, that's going to give me 41. So I get there 41 out of 30. That 41 out of 30 is an improper fraction. I've changed it to a mixed number. I get 1 and 11 out of 30, which is the same answer as 1 and 11 out of 30. Here we have another question. This time I'm going to leave you to do this question on your own. Use whichever method you would like. It would be nice if you do use both methods. When you're finished, you should get for your answer 1 and 5 out of 66. So when you're finished, you should get for your answer 1 and 5 out of 66. Hope this tutorial helps you. Thank you.
If you not have no education, people treat you like a